Hi guys, and welcome back to my channel. My name is Rachel Tintle and I am the owner and designer behind the Creative Siren. So for those of you that are not in my Facebook group, every month we do a challenge within our group where we put out a theme for the month and you have the entire month to sculpt on a tumbler fitting, that theme. And this month we are doing fantasy, which I'm really excited about. I really love this theme. I'm totally a secret nerd, so all the magic and the whimsy hit me with it. I just totally love it. And since fantasy is our theme, I thought that we would kick it off with someone that is near and dear to my heart, or this design is near and dear to my heart. It's opened up so many doors for me, and honestly, it led me to being here. So this week we will be going over how to sculpt my version of the Dragon Tumbler. He's definitely one of my favorites, and for this tumbler I made him more magnanimous. He's definitely more iridescent than what I would normally do, just because I really wanted all of those pieces to pop. I'm gonna warn you that it may be a type of cup that you work on it a little bit and then you put it away for a little bit and you work on it a little bit, because there's a lot of little details, but I promise that if you stick it out with me, you will be so proud of yourself and you'll end up with a super glorious cup. So with all of that being said, let's go ahead and jump right in. Right off the bat here, I'm going to go ahead and start with an already prepped and sanded tumbler. Here I have taped off the top and the bottom of my tumbler. It's just a personal preference and you don't have to if you don't want to. And I'm covering my entire cup with about a paper thin layer of polymer clay. And you can just blend your lines together if you have to put the clay on in pieces, but it doesn't have to be perfect because we will be adding texture to our cup and it will hide a lot of those blemishes. The next thing we're going to do after you have your cup fully covered is we're going to take just a small bit of clay here and we're going to shape it into a teardrop. Now this is going to be kind of like an indicator for the center of the center face of our dragon here. So it's really important to do this step first, and that'll help guide you the rest of the way for the little bits that you're putting on. And now that you have your teardrop, go ahead and slice each edge twice, and so it almost looks like a little bit of a flame. And then you're going to pick it up and flare out all of these little pieces. And I like to kind of bring my points to a more prominent point and really make it stick out, so it loses the teardrop shape and gives it a really cool, almost flame shape, which I don't know, I think it's kind of neat. Once you have it to the shape that you like, go ahead and place it on your cup. Now, like I said, this will be the indicator for the very center of our dragon face, so keep that in mind for wherever you place it. And if you need to flare out those little ends a little bit more, this is the perfect place to do it, because now it's going to stick to the base clay that you already added. Now it's time to add some detailing. So I just grab a needle tool, I make a line down the middle, and then I just start to drag very gently from the middle out, and so it kind of gives a feathering look to our little flame guy. And I don't do this with any kind of pattern or design in mind. I'm just looking to give it texture. So I will continue to add these little lines until I'm overall happy with it. Once you're done and ready to move on, go ahead and grab an already conditioned piece of rolled out clay, and we're gonna start cutting triangles. Now this guy is about, an inch tall and maybe about 2 inches wide here. And this is gonna start forming kind of the bridge of our dragon's nose. Now, as a quick note, do not discard that piece of rolled out clay because we are going to be using it for some more of these triangles here. So go ahead and take your largest triangle and we're going to just put it right at the base, almost touching our little flame guy. And I like to feather out the edges here just to soften them out. And when you have your triangle looking the way that you'd like it, go ahead and start blending the edges of that triangle into the base clay that you already have on your cup and really rounding out all of those edges so that they aren't so sharp. Now we're going to go ahead and repeat that whole process and make this triangle a little bit smaller than that first triangle. And again, one more time. Again, making this just a little bit smaller than the triangle previous. And then blend in all of those edges. Now let's go ahead and move on to his nostrils. So again, I'm making a elongated teardrop, and I'm gonna make 2 of these, and that's going to start out making the shape that we're looking for. Try and make them as close to the same size and the same shape as possible. So when you get it to where you want it, start placing it onto your cup so that you can further gauge if you need to take off a little bit more clay or you need to make them a little bit bigger. Once you get it to where you like it, go ahead and start placing them. You don't want them exactly right on top of each other. It's kind of like a separated faraway heart. And then start blending in all of those edges. Now I know it looks really, really funny, like the way that it looks right now, but I promise we're gonna fill in this gap and it's all gonna blend together. When you have all of your edges blended in, go ahead and start taking scraps of clay and filling in that middle part of our nostril. And we're going to round it out so it's not just a huge cliff off, but it looks like a natural curve there in the middle. It kind of more or less looks like a fat heart, and that's the shape that we're looking for. Now at this point, I'm just taking a really fat ball tool and I'm creating the nostrils, and I'm dragging into my clay because I like to elongate those nostrils a little bit. And then I'm going to take an X-Acto knife and I'm going to trim off all of those extra little bits that are just sticking up. And we want the transition from the inside of the nostril to the outside to be kind of a gradual slope, so it's not just a huge divot going down to the very end of that heart shape. And keep rounding it out and softening those edges until you get it to where you like it. Now that our nostril is done, I like to take a piece of clay and I cut out a very tiny triangle shape, and I'll add it on top of that last triangle down the center of our nostril. and it just fills in that gap that's right above the heart-shaped nostril that we have. And then blend in all of those edges. Okay, let's go ahead and start on the eyeballs. I am taking 2 gumball sized pieces of clay, and I'm going to round them out into an almond shape. And again, just like with the nostrils, we want to make sure that they look almost as identical as possible, but we're looking more of like a sisters, not twins type deal. So just do your best here. When you're all done shaping your eyeballs, go ahead and place them on the side of your cup. Now, I like to align it with the bottom corner of that top triangle, and I like to slant it down to really help start forming the shape of the eye, which I always like to slant them. And here I'm just making sure that they're equal distant from that bottom corner of our triangle, so they don't look too weird. And then when you get them where you like them, go ahead and start patting them down so that they're not too round, they're a little bit flattened and really blended into the base layer of our cup. Now that we have our eyeballs in, I'm just taking a chiseled silicone tip and I'm creating like an eyelid. And I'm really going to try and define that eyelid separate from our eyeball. And be sure to do this on both sides. At this point, I am taking a piece of clay that I've, more or less turned into this long worm, and I'm wrapping it around one of my eyeballs here. And I'm cutting it at a slant right at the middle part of our eyeball, just so that the ends meet together really neatly. And do the same for the top part of the eye. Now here I'm just gently patting that extra piece of clay that we added here, just so that it starts blending in with that eye. And you don't really see any gaps between where we have the eye or the eyelid and our extra piece of clay. Now grab yourself a very small ball tool and just start adding little bits of detail to this piece of clay that we added. Honestly, you can do the detail any which way you want to, and I'm sorry that on this video quality it's not really showing up the detail that I'm adding, but this is what I like to do. I just like to add little divots throughout the whole thing. When you're done with that, go ahead and add a slightly larger rolled out piece of clay to the outside layer of our eye. It's slightly fatter than the piece that we added before, and there's a reason for that, and that's because we're going to flatten it out so it's not going to look so round. It's just going to be, like this flat ribbon. And do the same to the top side, and really elongate this piece to the middle of your cup. Now I did go ahead and complete one side here, so I'm not showing you guys both sides because again that would be too repetitive. So just go ahead and repeat whatever I show you for one side for the other. Once you've laid down your pieces, really start patting it down to really flatten it out. And if you need to grab a ball tool, which is my favorite way to flatten it out, go ahead and do so. The bigger the ball tool I found, the easier it is to flatten. And I go through the middle and then I'll go through the very ends. And then trim off any excess that you have. And I, again, like to create like this point, like this really dramatic cat eye look. Now, for these gaps that are left at the points or the corners of our eyes, I'm just taking scraps of clay and I'm pushing them into those crevices, and then we'll smooth them out and you'll never even know that there were gaps there. And really try and utilize your silicone tip tools here, because it's going to help push all of that clay where it needs to go and fill those crevices. From here, I'm grabbing my needle tool and I'm just starting to add some detail to this outer ribbon. So I'm splitting the whole thing in half and adding lines downwards, but then I'm also angling them so that they point towards the very inner circle or inner corner of the eye. And now we're going to repeat our first step and just take a piece of rolled out clay and add it to this outer part of the eye, both top and bottom. Now this part's a little bit different. I've rolled out a piece of clay and now I'm just taking my X-Acto knife and cutting it into little pieces. I'm making sure that all of these little pieces are roughly the same size. I mean, it doesn't have to be perfect, but just do your best. Now I'm taking these small little pieces and I'm rolling them into a ball between my fingers, and then I'm flattening them like little pancakes. And I'm adding them just to the top part of our eye on the outer side. And I like to add them so that they're right on top of each other just a little bit, and then continue that all the way to the end. As I get to the end, I do like to make it a little bit smaller so that you kind of see this gradual decrease in size. And I didn't show it here, but I do also add one of these little pancakes to that very inner corner of the eye. I add two of them, one right on top of the other. Now from here, again, just add another rolled out smaller piece of clay, just like we did previously, and it's just to this top portion of the eye. Now, like before, we're grabbing a thicker piece of rolled out clay here because we're going to create yet another ribbon on the outside of our eye here. Now there, you'll see that I did leave a gap, but again, don't worry because we can always fill that gap with little scraps of clay. And repeat the same motion for the top part of our eye. And once again, grab your needle tool and create those details. Now don't worry if the details drag into your base layer there. Honestly, I prefer it that way because I think it gives it a spikier look, and then all of that will be covered up when we start adding the scales to our dragon. Okay, now it's time to add the scales. So you're gonna need a small set of scissors. If you have a Cricut, the scissors that came with your Cricut are probably the best to do this, or I just have this other smaller pair laying around. And you're actually going to go in and snip your clay. You're going to want your scissors to go in at an angle so that the tips of the scissors are really almost hitting your cup, and then it tapers out. Now you can play with the shape of your scales here, so if you do kind of flatten it out a little bit, you'll notice you'll get longer scales, versus if you really go at a deeper angle, you'll get shorter scales. So it's just finding out what you like. And I know this seems really cumbersome, like this is a lot of work, but I promise you, you can do this whole cup in a few minutes. I mean, you might have a few tired fingers, but otherwise it doesn't take very long to cover this whole cup. Once you're done making your scales, go ahead and very gently brush them downward so you don't happen to have any that just kind of stick up and will eventually poke you. When you're all done adding the scales to your cup, we're going to go ahead and form some eyebrows. Now I'm making these elongated teardrops. They're a little bit smaller than what we've done before because they're going to sit at the very top of our eye. And you're going to make as many as you need to cover that whole curve at the top of the eye, but then stop right as the curve ends, and then you get to like that cat eye part, that straightaway, because you don't want to add any more beyond that. Now I'm just going in to add some detail to our eyebrows. I'm using my needle tool, and again just dragging it outward to kind of feather those out, almost to give it like a hair, like it's actual hair, but it's just kind of to match the rest of the details that we've added here. And if you don't happen to have a needle tool, you can do this same technique with a silicone tip tool or a toothpick or anything that has kind of that pointed tip. Okay, now that our eyebrows are done, all that's left is the very back of our dragon. So we're gonna make some more of these elongated teardrops, though these guys are gonna be a little bit fatter, and we're gonna arrange them kind of off to the side of each other. So not quite on top of each other, but do it a little bit staggered. And this is just to kind of fill in that back. It almost gives them a mohawky look, which I really like. And then once you're done doing that, take another set and you're gonna go right down the middle, like right on top of each other. I would suggest that for the ones that are staggered, you start from the top and work your way down. And then these guys that are going straight down the middle on top of the staggered ones, you start from the bottom and work your way up so that they can overlap each other. And just like we did with the eyebrows, we're gonna go in and add the very same detailing, though this time I'm doing it with a silicone tool versus my needle tool, but it really doesn't matter. Now let's add some detail to the center of his nostril here. I'm just taking a ball tool and I'm just creating these little craters. I'm just gonna do it all over, real random, just however you want it. There's really no science to it. It's just, I don't like the way that it looks plain, so personally I can't leave it plain, so I'm just adding these craters. And again, because I can't leave anything plain, I am adding these little divots to his heart-shaped nostril down here. I'm using a wax carving tool for this part because it's like flat on one end, but you can add any detail that you want here. If you want to create those craters and like bring them down and have it matching like that center nostril, go for it. But I'm just creating like these horizontal lines on his nostril. And he is done, you guys. I am so proud of you for sticking with me because I know that this was a lot of detail, but you did it and you should be proud of yourself. So now all you gotta do is bake them. Now, when it comes to baking your cup, always follow the directions on the back of your packaging, especially when it comes to time and temperature. And please allow your cup to completely cool before moving forward. You guys, I had to split this video up into two, so I really hope that you will take your baked tumbler and follow along with me as I show you how to paint this guy so he looks so beautiful, majestic, and glorious, and all the things. So I'll see you at part 2, which will be posted shortly after this one. If you love this video, be sure to click here to see our last video. And don't forget to subscribe so you never miss another tutorial. See you later. Bye!